Good afternoon. President Harrison, trustees, faculty, administration, distinguished guests, graduates, family, and friends. I can't even begin to tell you what an honor it is for me to speak to all of you today. Throughout my career, I've done research and lecturing on leadership, and when I trace back my own development, I'm always taken back to my own experiences while at college. I wanted very much to stand here today and offer you some quick recipe for success, or some definitive recipe, and I only wish I had discovered it so that I could share it with all of you. But sandwiched somewhere in between a generation of women, mostly moms, who stayed home to raise all of us, and a generation that would follow mine, a generation that had choices about whether to stay home or go to work, my generation was not only told we could have it all, we were expected to pave the road at the same time that we were driving it. It was a bit bumpy at best, leaving me to ask the question that it seems every time I'm interviewed by the press I get asked as a mom and as the president and CEO of UNICEF US, how do you do it all? My answer is always 4 simple words: some days better than others. But I have garnered what some might call wisdom, and others might just say lessons learned, from my almost 60 years of life. And I thought today I would share a few points based on that. I graduated from the State University of New York in 1978 with a bachelor's degree in the very lucrative field of studio art, with absolutely no idea at that time that I would someday lead the US arm that supports the organization that, together with partners, has saved the lives of more children than any other humanitarian cause ever has. Thank you. On my graduation day, I had my heart set on getting a painting into one of the major museums in this country, and finding no letter asking for that when I got home from commencement, and realizing that starving artists really don't eat, I returned to graduate school and went in a completely different direction. But when I look back, I realized if I had truly taken stock of who I was, not just what I thoroughly enjoyed studying, I might very well have predicted that I would end up just where I am. Because I have a picture that stays in my mind with absolutely everything that I do. It is a picture of a little girl standing on a dock, holding the hand of a little boy. The girl is 6 years old, the boy 4. They're getting ready to board a ship bound for a country they've never before visited, that speaks a language that neither of them speak, and where they are now expected to live. They've only learned they'd be traveling a few short days before, and they're traveling with neither their mother nor their father, but instead are accompanied by a woman whose last name they know, but whose first name they will never know, and whom after the journey they will never see again. The year is 1939. The ship is bound for the United States. The little girl in the picture is my mom, the boy her brother, my uncle, and they are being frantically sent away by their parents in the hopes that as Jews they will be spared the horrors that the Nazis are bringing to bear in their community in Vienna. It is the anonymous woman whose efforts saved the lives of my mother and her brother, whose legacy taught me a true life lesson. That lesson, that indeed one person can and often does make a difference. And I stand here today as living proof of the difference that this one woman made. But there is another ship that looms large in my life. This is the one that my grandfather boarded, having spent his last dime to gain access on the ship and to get the travel documents that went with it. That ship, the SS St. Louis, often referred to as the Voyage of the Damned, departed from Europe bound for Cuba. My grandfather boarded like everyone else with plans to settle in Cuba, send for his kids in the United States, and start life again. However, when that boat got into Cuba's harbor, authorities came aboard and informed the passengers that their documents were fraudulent and they would not be allowed into the country. The boat sat in a harbor for 40 days while the world debated the fate of its passengers, and even the United States refused to help, ultimately forcing the ship's return to Europe, where most of the passengers perished at the hands of the Nazis. But my grandfather was among a very small group that actually survived, and I had the privilege to know him and learn from him an equally important lesson: just what happens when the world turns its back, ignores the facts, and allows innocent people to die. These two lessons propelled me into a volunteer activity that ultimately gave me a career. But even if the actions they resulted in had remained in the volunteer realm, they taught me that when I care, when I act, when I give, my life is truly at its richest. This university understands that mission, committed to diversity and growth of ideas, committed to giving back. This is an institution whose students choose community service trips over traditional spring breaks, an institution that raises money for relief efforts in Haiti, and a community who comes together for a day of service. My work, while completely satisfying, has shown me another bit of wisdom. That is, that we each tend to isolate what we hear to those things that we listen for, instead of listening to all that's going on around us. For example, and I speak to the graduates at this moment, did you know that today, as we celebrate this amazing milestone in your lives, 17,000 children under the age of 5 will die of causes we already know how to prevent, but we're just not getting the job done. And 17,000 more tomorrow, and 17,000 more the next day, and so on. It's as if 30 jumbo jets, each filled with children under the age of 5, were crashing into the ocean every single day, and no one was noticing. Why? Because here in the US, we're removed from the disaster, and we're not hearing the noise. Ask the starving moms I met in the ravaged Horn of Africa. They know. Or the dad I encountered in a health clinic in Haiti as the cholera epidemic spread. He knows. Or the woman whose hand I held in a dirt floor hospital in Sierra Leone as we unfortunately watched her 6-day-old baby die of tetanus, a disease preventable with a 70-cent vaccine. And she can easily tell you that children are dying and the world is not noticing. In the past 8 years as the president and CEO of US UNICEF, I have visited over 30 countries, from the deserts of Kenya to the camps in Darfur, to the rice paddies of Vietnam and Cambodia, to the rubble found in the wake of a tsunami or an earthquake, to my most recent visit to the Jordanian refugee camp for Syrian refugees, to dealing with the disaster in Nepal of the past 2 weeks. I have been forced to open my eyes, open my ears, and to ask, how can I help? What difference can I make? My travels have taught me that most parents, regardless of country of origin or economic success, we want the same things for our children. We want them to be happy. We want them to be educated. We want them not to go hungry, not to be scared. We want them to be safe. We want them to be enabled to pursue whatever dream they might have. We want them to have the childhood they deserve and to be enabled to enjoy the adulthood that follows, plain and simple. And these notions are no more defined by our country of origin than the children should be. It is time we stop defining children by their borders. They are not Kenya's children, Haiti's children, Vietnam's children, Nepal's children. They are children, defined by their age, our children. And we are the grown-ups. The University of Hartford stands to prepare future leaders. It aims to arm students with the tools to act and the tools to look out for those who need help. Students who are truly, as the university motto says, for humanity. And today, as you graduate, you join the ranks of the adulthood responsible for these children. At UNICEF, we have committed to work until that number, 17,000, is brought all the way down to 0. I believe 0 is possible. I believe anything less is completely unacceptable, and you can be part of that effort. I invite you, open your eyes, open your ears, open your heart by giving voice to those less fortunate than you, and I promise you, you will not be sorry. Thank you. So if I'm lucky, I hope to live long enough to get a few years on my front porch, rocking in my favorite chair and reflecting on my life. If I get that chance, I know I will measure my success far more by the difference I have made than by the dollars I have earned. But that alone will not sum it up, which brings me to the final lesson I'll share with you that I believe leads to success, which quite simply is, don't forget, graduates, to take time to fall in love. You will not fill your entire life yourself. It will be filled by those you let into it, by those who have traveled near and far today to be part of this milestone, and those who will be there for all your future milestones. I am a very lucky woman for many, many reasons. I've had the privilege to receive an education that allowed me to grow in so many ways, and gave me the skills and the confidence to go where life has led me. You too now have that. And I have a career that I love with a cause that I'm passionate about. And I am successful enough in it to stand proud. But the true secret to my success is the family that I go home to, my husband, my children, my grandchildren, and the blessing of the friends that surround us. They make it all worthwhile. So graduates of 2015, I wish you all of this and more. Thank you so much.